Welcome everyone to the Chenrezig Tibetan Buddhist Center live teaching from Namgyal Khensur Geshe Lharampa. Today Rinpoche will be explaining the embedded meaning within the Heart Sutra of the actual mantra that we find in it, that is the summary of what the whole text is explaining. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but first let's make prostrations. So we'll begin by making prostrations. Okay, so before we get started with any explanation, let's do the introductory prayers. So we'll begin with the Heart Sutra. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature, form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity, no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te yata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Agasamarata Shanarasa Marayambe Deyadang Gade Gade Baragade Barazangade Badizo Baba Ganjo Sanji Gaide Medoji Obodoji Mevodoji Shivadoji Jagi Baji Medam Beja Danji Janingo Yezo Giri Nanja Jejo Wada Mido Nube Gendan Dewada Dumba Janji Bonzo Donjoji Daji Deja fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. Jezo Lama Damba Nye Nangi Yogo La Yenze Nyon Zenji Nye Da Zame No Jeze Mala Za Ye Yo Ye Ya I send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious Guru. Yedam Guru Radha Mandala Gamni Radhayami. Jada Ye Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Jazu Jin Nagi Jenye Jibe Zanan Ye Jala Benji Zanye Jubashu. Yadan Ye Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Jazu Jin Nagi Jenye Jibe Zanan Ye Jala Benji Zanye Jubashu. Yadan Ye Janam La Janjo Badu Dani Jazu Jin Nagi Jenye Jibe Zanan Ye Jala Benji Zanye Jubashu.
What that telling us what the some of the beliefs was what they turned out the rules you
So today, we will be going over the meaning of Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhisoha.
That they turned out the Karishana, Teata the Sanchimero, Teata, Gate Sulang, Tivachimi Sulang, Gate, Gate Julang, Paragat Tolang, Parasangat Gulang, Bodhisoha, the Sanji.
So when we look at this mantra that is embedded within the Heart Sutra, it says Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhisoha. So here we have this mantra that the syllables first, Teata is like the head of the mantra, and the Teata Dondagare. This, thus, okay, this. So that. So the teata is like this, this. This is Om. The Om is the head of the mantra. It is said in Jayangapi Lodru's commentary, we find that it says that the Om is like the head. So it says this, and then the beginning, and then we have the first gate. The first gate is referring to, in this case, because this is a Mahayana text, the Mahayana path of accumulation. So there was a question that came up about where would be a good place to learn about the 5 paths. Any of the more extensive commentaries in the Heart Sutra will have the explanation of the 5 paths, because the Heart Sutra goes through all of the 5 paths. What this mantra does is summarize the entire meaning of the Heart Sutra, which is the 5 paths. So you'll see these syllables here that relate to one among those 5 paths. So we'll go through it as it's explained. So it's this, and then the Om, which is the head of the mantra, Gate, which is the path of accumulation, Gate, which is the path of preparation, Paragate is the path of seeing, Parasangate is the path of meditation, and then Bodhisoha is the path of no more learning, or Buddhahood. So you'll see even before that mantra in the Heart Sutra, you'll see 5 syllables. Therefore, the great mantra of Parajamaharamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. So here we find symbolically the 5 paths mentioned, and that's why the great mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the great insight. So that's going through those 5 paths. So what does that mean exactly? What are these 5 Mahayana paths? Dene de donda de tshirona, dene solang ga techen solang ga de jigulu. The
다 대신 소랑스가 샤주 세주가 뒤줄제송나 되는 대신 소랑스.
Okay. So dene the shacha tuba, the solang letson, then kalpa drame son. So son, yoruba. So here, what does this mean? What do these 5 paths relate to? When they are related to the Mahayana paths, it's when one becomes a bodhisattva and actually enters the Mahayana path that one enters the first path, which is called the path of accumulation. So when one generates the mind that aspires to enlightenment, then he or she becomes a bodhisattva and then is on the first path, which is called the path of accumulation. Now, there are 3 paths in the path of accumulation: small, medium, and great. Then once the bodhisattva reaches the medium level, he or she cannot lose her bodhicitta. But at the small level of the path accumulation, the bodhisattva can still lose his or her bodhicitta and become a Hinayana practitioner. So when we look at this from the Mahayana perspective, the Mahayana first path, the path of accumulation, is when the bodhisattva emerges, when he or she generates bodhicitta. Then Rinpoche, the chongo din shambo, chongo the semche yutugdu, yene din the denden chagadu, then the shanchu semba, the shanchu jesem, the mepa chagamaribe, din. Din. Then the solan chongo musen jusen, the din lena jusen yubicha. The solang, the chongo din shambo, then the musen jusen.
샤주 sempre domba julio zona what
Jusen.
Jusen.
Then the solan jin ken kanga jusen yubicha. Din. Okay, so when we look at how a bodhisattva becomes a bodhisattva, he or she first gets aspiring bodhicitta. So that's the generation of the mind that aspires to enlightenment at small level. Then he or she takes the bodhisattva vow and becomes an engaged bodhisattva and has engaged bodhicitta. So at the point of the medium level, the bodhisattva has engaged bodhicitta and no longer can lose his or her bodhicitta. So at the small level, the solan chongo mepacha tugudue. Okay, so you can lose your bodhicitta at the smallest level. So the path of accumulation for the Mahayana is when a being generates the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So not to confuse things, there are the 5 Hinayana paths as well, but we'll get to that at the end just to kind of summarize how they relate or what they are. They're similar in the sense that they go through these ideas around emptiness, but the path of accumulation is renunciation as opposed to bodhicitta. But a bodhisattva has to have renunciation in order to generate bodhicitta. So the bodhisattva, when he or she at the small level loses their bodhicitta, they fall to the Hinayana path of accumulation because they have renunciation if they have been able to generate that first aspiring bodhicitta. Okay, so that's the first path of accumulation relates to the first gate. Now, the next is the path of accumulation is the first path and relates to the first gate. The path of preparation is the second Mahayana path and relates to the second gate. The Julang, then Julang gar chegdu. Techen Julang. Leso, and Jepal Sema. Ale. Then the Julang, Ewaji, the Me Tse Zupa. Chushu Lena, Jepa Yubicha. Ale, Yuchu. Okay. Leso. Then the Julampa, the Jipa Kanga, the Jepa, the Doni Dupi Jea Sema me Yubi Macha. Okay, so the next path of preparation deals with achieving through these stages a union of calm abiding and special insight, which has as its object of observation emptiness. And then there are 2 different types: those who have inferential valid cognition based on a reason related to emptiness, and those who don't. So there are 4 stages: the heat, peak, patience, and the supreme mundane qualities. So it's basically, it goes through these stages, and once one reaches the place of patience, it says in the Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, Pabunka Rinpoche asserts that one can no longer fall to the lower realms. And then the last mundane state or supreme mundane state is called that because it's the last time that being is an ordinary being, because the next stage, the next step is for him or her to see emptiness and become a superior. So it's the supreme mundane quality, the highest mundane quality one can have, the peak of mundane qualities, right before one is about to see emptiness. And there's commentary on why it's heat, because it's like you're feeling the warmth of emptiness and you're at the peak. You're getting to the top of understanding, and you're so there's a whole commentary that you can find on these 4 levels, which I won't do justice to or have all the details of because I haven't studied enough. So for that reason, you should look further into the various commentaries where we find these, such as Pension Sunandrapa's General Meaning of Perfection, and then any of the Abhisama Alamkara commentaries will help to support these views. So it's be very good to look further into all this information that you get in order to really understand it, because this is just a quick summary. So then one reaches the path of seeing. One sees emptiness directly. Then a tonlan lena, parchi lonlan, the melolan, the gari, the kontoni do pishera, the musun sema, gari gari. Then a then parchi molan, the musun sema. Then the lana, the tonlan degadu, gonlan degadu. Then the tonlan ba musun sema yomare. Okay, so then the being sees emptiness directly. So there's a direct uninterrupted. There are the paths where this being directly realizes emptiness. Hold on one second. So up to that point, their single pointed engagement becomes clearer and clearer, and then they have a direct valid cognition of emptiness that's free from conceptuality. So at that point, the artificial forms of obstructions are abandoned. So the artificial obstructions are abandoned. Then Tonlan Lena de Nyomo Rapa Ponson Tongdue. So at the path of seeing, the artificial forms of obstructions are abandoned. So similar, Rinpoche said it's similar to the coarse forms, but they're the artificial forms. Those that rely on thinking of obstructions are abandoned. So there's natural and artificial forms. So those artificial forms are abandoned. And then one is on the first bodhisattva ground. Tonlan Lena de Sa Tambo. So once one reaches the first path of seeing, then he or she becomes a first ground bodhisattva. So not to be a first ground bodhisattva and becoming a bodhisattva are two different things. You become a bodhisattva at the path of accumulation when you generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. You become a first ground bodhisattva when you see emptiness directly. So there's in the path of seeing, there's direct perception and non-direct perception. So there's a person on the path of seeing directly perceiving emptiness, and then there's when they come out of that perception, and it's Haribhadra says it's like locking the door so that the thief of the artificial forms of obstructions can't come back in. When one is at the other side of that, he or she is not directly valid cognizing emptiness at that moment, but is on the path of seeing. So there's path of seeing, which is direct perception, and path of seeing, which is not direct perception. But if one has reached the path of seeing, he or she has had a direct valid cognition of emptiness. So then becomes a first ground bodhisattva. Then he or she has another direct perception of emptiness. The Gomla Lena, the Ngusun, Doni Dubi Ngusun Yanjer Lengdue. So then at the path of meditation, there is another direct perception. And then there are subsequent, and there are more and more direct perceptions, direct valid cognitions of emptiness that then clear away more and more subtle forms of obscurations and negativities. So one reaches the second ground at the path of meditation, and then goes through the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth ground. And once he or she reaches the eighth ground, the afflictive obstructions are abandoned. So he or she is similar to a Hinayana foe destroyer. The Chanchu Sembe Sa Jepa, the Teme Da Jomba Drapudu, Chipa, Gangisina, the CP, Pachai, Pon, the CP, the Nyomo Yomar. Okay, so the afflictive obstructions. So the afflictive obstructions have been abandoned for the bodhisattva at that eighth ground. The afflictive obstructions are what the Hinayana foe destroyers abandoned so that he or she has an abiding nirvana. The bodhisattva has the non-abiding nirvana because the bodhisattva vow and the compassion drives him or her to keep going and to not abide in that nirvana, accomplish the ninth and the 10th ground, which then clear away the obstructions to omniscience. So there are various levels of the afflictive obstructions that get cleared away, the great of great, the medium of great, the small of great, etc. Those are those innate or natural ones. And then the obstructions to omniscience get cleared away in a great swoop of great, medium, small. So we have obstructions to afflictive obstructions, which bind us to cyclic existence, and obstructions to omniscience, which keep us from being omniscient. So the bodhisattva wants to get rid of both of those. So he or she goes through these paths just explained, and the Buddha Shakyamuni generated this path of accumulation, and then accumulated merit for 3 countless eons. So that merit of the 3 countless eons was the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, the path of no more learning. So the cleansing of these imprints and obstructions and the clarity, and then compassion, that allows this accumulation of merit to take place and destroy the self-cherishing attitude, which is a binder to cyclic existence. So there's a big debate that says to banish the one thing to blame for everything. And we'll say that's the self-cherishing attitude. But then the debate is, isn't it the grasping at true establishment? So you can talk amongst yourselves about that. Whether the root of cyclic existence is the grasping at true establishment or a self-cherishing attitude. Na the triwa jasam. The korwa tsawa gariyan ran chenzing denzin kagi. So the answer is the grasping at true establishment. The lojo dondoma, the cheek, gran chenzin and nusho.
That the other the Buddhist was doing kinds.
Less
Tibetan, the doing lowers, Janga Luruge, Dodo to the high, Judu Han Minos, Shesun Bezer.
the Judaje, Ngala, you're
Judaji not Maris.
So then it seems like this is a tantric mantra in there. And Jayangapi Lodru stops that and says that this mantra doesn't have anything to do with the 4 classes of Tantra. This is a mantra of the Sutra tradition. You'll find this in the commentary of the Heart Sutra. And who is Jayangapi Lodru? Jayangapi Lodru was the first textbook writer for Drepung Losang Ling Monastery. And then Panchen Sonon Drapa's texts become more prevalent. And then Panchen Sonon Drapa's texts were the ones that were used as the core texts. But Jayangapi Lodru's commentary was so beautiful. Rinpoche, many years ago, more than 20 years ago, was requested by Bob, the Shira Nipo Gu, and then Rinpoche was able to find this commentary to help elucidate this for us. And there's some cassettes around that have this very in-depth explanation of the Heart Sutra with Roy translating it. So we're gonna get those. We've got to make that happen somehow for everyone to hear, because it really does an incredible job of going through. It may be up on the website. I was trying to click on the Heart Sutra and I couldn't find the teaching. So we'll figure out a way to make that happen. I know that one of Rinpoche's students, Adrian, has the cassettes that were professionally made. I don't know, we can maybe convert those. But that's enough about that. So basically, that's the way that the 5 Mahayana paths are explained. The 5 Hinayana paths, basically the Teme Lama, the Solang, Nipa Juan. Okay, so then in the 5 Hinayana paths, those paths are very similar, but it begins with renunciation. So it begins with the desire to definitely emerge from cyclic existence, and then goes through those levels of understanding of emptiness, but does not obviously have anything to do with the path. So only thing that Hinayanists is able to get rid of are the afflictive obstructions to achieve an abiding nirvana. So there are 2 kinds of Hinayanists, hearers and solitary realizers, and then the Mahayanists have the perfection vehicle and the resultant vehicle. And then there are the 5 tantric paths as well. We won't get into those, but they're not related to the Heart Sutra. Maybe you could, in a way, connect it, probably. Simultaneously, while the Heart Sutra was being taught in Shambhala, Buddha Shakyamuni was emanating as Kala Chakra and turning the wheel of the continuum of time of Kala Chakra. So maybe in some commentaries you could find some connections, but there are 5 tantric paths. Rinpoche, the Dutsu Chipa, the Shacha Tupa, Dukor, Dan Shira Nimpo Donson.
Lojo Pejel, Tukoson Batan, Shago Povidel, Shishing Dozo, Tunyamare.
Then a Tunjan Chipa, then the Chichena, the Nga, Langa, the Teata on Gate, the Nala, Yo Maribe, Gangisan, Dukor Langa, Yo Maribe, Jawa, Yo Maribe. The Delpa, the Yuribe. The delpa, the jawa, the delpa, yurbe, the teata ongate gate, dukor jawa, yurbe. Okay, so there is, Rinpoche is saying there are, I asked if there were commentaries that connected this in some way, because there are the 5 tantric paths within the Kala Chakra, but we'll table that for another time. Just interesting things that we can think about so we don't get prideful and think that we know more than we do. Because the more Rinpoche lives here, I realize I really don't know much about Buddhism, but what I do know, hopefully I can share with you, and I can share with you accurately for sure because of Rinpoche's kindness. So let's see if there's any questions. Oh, good. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Dan, when one achieves complete realization of emptiness, does one also achieve limitless merit? No. It is said that in the 4th of the formless absorptions, there is neither perception nor non-perception. Other texts recommend the practice of awareness itself. Is it possible to have awareness without an appearance? An appearance. The Dan. Okay, konnichiwa. Tonla lena, doni dupi shera yuna, the sonam, seme sonam yurbe. Dene the tonla lena seme sona yuna garishene sanje yomare. Gangisene the seme sona yure.
Yine
the kongi chua de tonla lena sonan kangson. So at the point one sees emptiness directly, you have what is called a limitless accumulation of merit, but it doesn't mean that you have all of it. It just means it's, again, we're using language to show like it's so much, you can't imagine how much merit you have, but you still have to accumulate merit because you still have to go through those levels, which are a large amount. You go through the path of meditation and go through all those different bodhisattva grounds up to the 10th ground before you get to the path, the place of no more learning. So when it says you have limitless merit, it means you have such a great amount. It's inconceivable, so much that you've gotten rid of the artificial forms of the obstructions, the afflictions. The artificial afflictions have now been extinguished because this merit is so great and the wisdom is so great. But you still have accumulation to go through, because in order to become a Buddha, you have to have a union of method and wisdom, this sok, this accumulation. And you still have method and wisdom to accumulate at that point. So it's very large, but not limitless. Dene the kon chua, dene the chishina zochen chua, that's good. The text from then the sheba da, the toni gon, the chishina the shaju. The shacha the nanla, the shachen the nanla, natsu sen tamba sen sanodan. Yo maribe shachen the yurbe.
Shachen zushen to member that.
So there is not a necessarily in the Rinpoche is saying you find in the Mahamudra in the Dzogchen traditions this this non-object, the awareness observing the emptiness of the awareness. So the mipa yomare Dzogchen dan shachen mipa yomare mipa gadre sem chu tamshe. So the object of observation for Dzogchen and Mahamudra is Yanjasuna mipa gare chu tamche. So the object of, so all phenomena are the object of observation of Dzogchen and Mahamudra, and the lack of true establishment of everything. So the mipa, the shachen, the sem, Tony Sanlodan, Yomaribe.
So
So Rinpoche is not getting into details. He's saying that all the traditions are similar in that they establish the lack of true establishment of their object of observation, whether it's the awareness, being aware that the awareness is not truly established. So being aware that your awareness is not truly established would be the same as being aware that a shoe is not truly established. Because Arya Deva says in the 400 verses, the doni chi. So once you see the emptiness of one, you see the emptiness of all. So that's why it's negated that one can just understand the lack of true establishment of self and not understand that all phenomena are not truly established. And that's why in the higher schools, it negates that idea that one can see emptiness of one thing. Arya Deva says, you see the emptiness of one, then you see the emptiness of all. Rebed. My phone. Okay, Coleman. Okay, hopefully that helps. Is it possible to have awareness without an appearance? I'm not really sure what that means, but I hope what we did help clarify your question. Awareness without an appearance. Well, you can have but a dream has an appearance. If you have conceptuality, you have some sort of appearance coming to the mind, a concept. When you see something directly, you don't have that concept. But there is maybe the appearance of lack of true establishment. You'd have to really get deep on that. How do I stop clinging to my thoughts and simply let them go? Dazin Chembo, Coleman, boy, Chewa Jadu, Kon Sem, Sheda Tela Sapo, and Kon Seda Zingudu, Kon Salo Mamu Damudu, Sem, the Sheda Tela Sapo, the Nepo Garde. So we're not independent about what we can think about in a complete way. But everybody's different in what antidotes you can apply. If you have problem, then sem the mambo sanlodana niepogarde gon yochi.
What is
The Rinpoche is saying really it's an individual would apply individual antidotes. If you have anger, you apply love. If you have clinging to impurity, you apply meditation on ugliness. If you're clinging to prideful things, then you meditate upon impermanence, that you're going to die and be a corpse at some point that won't matter at all to the world 5 minutes later. So it's not really very prideful at that point. So those are the kind of things that each individual would apply to his or her main negative emotions, and realizing that the root of everything is the grasping at true establishment, so that emptiness is really the main antidote. But for someone like me, we need to start with some of the more glaring things so as to not fall into nihilism. So when I get angry, try to meditate upon love instead of meditating upon the emptiness of the anger, because then it's really easy just to blow off the fact that I've become angry and haven't really applied an antidote and just kind of put it over here for later, as opposed to applying an antidote. So my mind has an imprint of not wanting to be angry and wanting to love. For someone like me, there's such glaring afflictions, and the emptiness is an easy way to just kind of blow off on a disturbing emotion, as opposed to confronting it and facing it. So that's just me. That's why Rinpoche said, everybody's different. That may not work for you. That's why Rinpoche has been very hesitant to give a room full of people a meditation instruction, because and what they should do and what's the best practice and their sadhana. And I've asked for years why, and this is why, because everybody's different. Everyone has a nice, pleasant mix of afflictions and good qualities. And how you turn them all into good qualities isn't the same. That's why it's important to study and study and study. And then you have that mirror of the Dharma to look in and figure out what you need to do and what you need to fix. Because our teachers, even if they have clairvoyance, aren't going to tell us exactly how to fix ourselves, because we have to have the karma to be able to have path. So the responsibility is in our hands. We need to not look to outside individuals to try to fix us. We have to fix us, and the way we fix us is by looking in that mirror of the Dharma, looking at those Lam Rim teachings and seeing what we need to keep doing and what we need to abandon. Okay, let's do the concluding prayers. Let me make sure this isn't related to the teaching. Okay. The concluding Mondel offering dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful Abbot Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Rinpoche, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rimchi Guti Shabi Denala. Let me see the. I know people would like an appearance, so look how big she's getting, everybody. Right? She's gotten a lot bigger. Yeah, this is Kala. Yeah. You're on film for the whole world to see, Kala. What do you think? Yay! Okay, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. And yeah, we'll talk.